Welcome to Dogs and Gooses, where, as my associate Starks always says, where the dogs are dirty and the goose is silly. Today we have some very special guests today, don't we, Starks?
We sure do.
I know that they're especially near and dear to you. You spend a lot of your time with them.
I sure do.
Quietly, though, you don't talk about it a lot to everyone. But, you know, they've told me stories about you that I wouldn't have believed if they didn't know you so well.
Oh. I don't know if I like the sound of this.
But here today we have Rob and Raquel Starks.
Otherwise known as my parents.
Otherwise known as the power couple.
Okay, audience, calm your applause.
But I'm super excited. I'm super excited to have them, and to hear what they have to say on a myriad of topics. But before we get to that, we are making this episode for the future. So we're not going to air this episode right away, and so we don't know what kind of news is going to be going on at the time that we release this. So it's hard to do a news segment. However, Starks and I believe that we can tell the future if we think hard enough. We think that society is predictable enough that we'll know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, Starks, what do you think is going to be happening at this time of the release of this episode?
Well, probably nuclear war.
Okay.
My first guess.
Okay. Like, on what scale?
It'll be fairly small. Maybe like we lose North Korea, South Korea, most of Asia, but not much else.
Like, okay, we're keeping the losses, to a
minimal.
location.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also think that let's see here. We'll probably air this in 2 weeks?
Yeah, about something like that.
I think the Broncos will be winning the Super Bowl at that point.
Doubtful. They don't have Drew Lock or Vic Fangio anymore.
Yeah.
We've established that.
You do make a fair point there.
I'm gazing into the future using my philosophy degree.
Oh, I wish I had one of those.
I know. Your nuclear war prediction might not happen, but this one definitely will.
Okay.
I think that somebody else is going to find an explosive device in their house.
Oh, really?
From World War II, maybe World War I even. I'm not going to... The past couple... we've had several news segments where somebody has found either like an old... I think it was it a nuclear weapon in their house from
there was a Cold War missile. There was a grenade.
Yeah, a World War II grenade, and they were taking apart their shower. It was just sitting there on one of the
studs.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna have to predict.
Are you wanting me to guess what kind, or?
Okay. Yeah. I was trying to decide what kind we're gonna do. I think
I don't want to say grenade again or a missile. What's a torpedo? It's going to be a torpedo.
We're going to find a torpedo.
World War I torpedo.
Probably in a bathtub.
German torpedo.
German torpedo in a bathtub.
Under the bathtub.
Well, that would make sense. It's underwater after all.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
Poetic.
Yep. I think we're pretty spot on. I don't really see how any of this could go right.
And so, basically, you have your news.
Yep. Just refer to this episode and we're going to be right.
Yeah.
So
fantastic.
Also, I want to recognize our support staff as well today, which is Jonah, my nephew. He's our support staff, and he's going to be helping us in the background. Good man, Jonah.
Yes, we appreciate you, Jonah, in more ways than you know. So today, like I said, we're talking to Rob and Raquel Starks, the power couple, and I've been wondering where to start with the questions, and
I have an idea if you'd like.
Well, what's your idea, Starks? Go ahead.
How much wood could a woodchuck...
Never mind. Anyway. I know that we kind of talked about it before, and y'all don't want to talk about how you met. One of y'all doesn't want to talk about how you met.
I want to talk about how they met.
I want to talk about how they met, too. So maybe just like a brief synopsis. You don't have to tell the full story.
I want to start first from Mom's perspective and then go to Dad's.
I
Tell us the story, Mom. What was happening?
So I was a senior in high school,
All right.
and Utah State invited us down to a dance for the Institute. So we went down to that.
How far away was that?
It was about, well, from Bancroft to Logan, it was about,
Like an hour and 15 minutes?
yeah, about an hour,
Oh,
somewhere.
an hour and 30.
So a little
Is
ways.
it? Yeah. So we went down and we had a lot of fun. So me and my best friend, we decided we had so much fun we wanted to go back the next week. So we did go back.
Who wasn't your husband at the time? Best friend who wasn't your husband at the time?
Yeah, wasn't my
Yeah.
husband at the
No,
time.
that wasn't Dad.
And
It
her
was her
sister lived.
friend,
Her
girl.
sister lived close to
Oh,
the campus,
That would
and
be
so
his
we
sister.
stayed.
Oh, are you talking about Heather? Okay, sorry, Jill.
No, I'm talking about Luana, my best friend. I didn't know Heather at the time. So we went down and we were at the dance, and we were out there, and this guy, we went to go to the bathroom, I think, or something. We were out in the hall, and this guy approaches us with a squirt gun and asks our names, and he was with another guy, and the guy with the squirt gun, of course, was Rob. And I
What
told him
happened?
my name.
What convinced
He
you to
still
tell
carries squirt guns on him
I
to
told
this
him
day.
my name.
him?
Yeah.
Got a holster and everything.
I told him my name, and he pointed at my friend, and she wouldn't tell him, so he squirts her. So he kept squirting her for different reasons. And anyway, we just kind of talked out there in the hall, and then we talked for quite a while through the most of the dance, and then he wanted to take us home, and we're like, no, we don't know you. You can't take us home. And so they, well, the first thing he did that I liked is my friend sometimes she didn't swear, but she would swear when she got around guys a little bit, and I didn't like that. And so he told her not to swear.
Ooh.
And so I liked that. And then
Wait.
he wanted to take us home, and I'm like, no,
Has
we
she
don't
ever
know
seen
you
him
at
when
all.
he's working on cars?
I know, right? I wish you could see him now. Well, and the thing is, she never swore, except when we were talking to guys a little bit. She never ever swore. But anyway, he pulled out his Temple Recommend and showed me, so I let him give me a ride home on his motorcycle.
There you go.
And the thing that I remember about the night was it was just kind of like magic. Magic in the air. It was kind of magical to me.
And he ran on the back of a motorcycle.
It was,
Coming home
and he
from a
was going
dance.
down
Well, with the
Logan Main
studs in his
Street.
rock
me and all
star
pointing
yeah,
it out.
look at him.
Heavily sought after by the ladies.
Yeah. It was seriously magic. There was magic in the air. It just felt magical. We went to his house and we talked, and it just out in that night, and we went up the canyon a little bit, and then we went back to her sister's trailer, and that's how I remember the night. It's just kind of magical.
Oh,
Dad,
your perspective
was it magical?
from the guy with the
Sure.
squirt gun.
It was, I
Do you
mean,
often perform holdups with squirt
it's
guns?
the only way I could get a date. I mean,
Maybe I need to employ that tactic.
That's where you've been going wrong.
Yeah, I have not yet brought out the squirt gun.
don't resort to that.
But it worked.
Says
I
the
still
man
have
who
the squirt
successfully
gun.
did
It's
it.
locked
You
in his
used to have
gun
the
case. Yeah.
That is awesome.
Dad's gun safe. Yeah.
No way.
It was my
That is
birthday
magical.
that day, and I was kind of feeling a little obnoxious. Not that I wouldn't have done something like that anyway, because nobody even at home or any place had acknowledged it, and so I was kind of, well, not that I'm totally into birthdays or anything, but I thought, well, somebody could at least say happy birthday. So on the way home or the way out of work, I worked at Smith's Food King. I picked up a squirt gun. I don't really know why I did. I just did. And then I was walking around with my arms folded under my chest and spraying people as they walked by. And they couldn't see it, and there's some football players. They walked by, and I
Unloaded.
I could have been beat up, but
But he's still standing here today and married.
yeah,
And married.
So she walked by. She and her friend walked by, and so I just on a whim turned around and said, "Give me your names." Your mom.
What color is the squirt gun? May I ask?
I think it was an amber color.
Ooh, classy.
Described it as orange.
The color of
that's how I
love.
would have described it too.
Raquel sung like a canary, and her friend was, I think she was somewhere between amused and annoyed. I can't tell you which one it was. She wasn't she wasn't forthright with any information, so I squirted her a few times.
Well, as you should. You know, you gotta.
I should have.
After that, mom wised right up and just gave him the information he wanted.
Well, Mom was first, so I mean, she didn't have anything
So
to base my future behavior on.
so Mom started.
Yeah, she's the one that
Was
sung
it Luana?
first.
Yeah.
She caved.
Goodness.
Well, that's a good story. And then you guys started dating. And now I'm here.
Yep.
Yeah, you're
Pretty
here.
much.
Can't refute that. I
Yeah.
mean, is there some philosophical question to whether he exists there?
Well, I mean, we got several. But we won't go into it. It's not a philosophy episode, you know what I'm saying?
If it is, we'd have to label it as boring. And we didn't want to do that for your first episode.
Yeah, no,
of the show.
yeah. We don't want to do that to you.
Yeah, we got started, and then we had the long distance relationship. No longer than we dated a little bit over the summer, and I worked a lot, and she worked a lot. We still, she lived down in Bancroft or in Chesterfield actually, and I drive a motorcycle up there. And one funny story is that she had a little brother. He was 4 years old or 5 years old at the time, and I'd just driven my motorcycle up there. And yes, I was protective about my motorcycle because I always kept it up, but he was looking at it, and I knew that a lot of things on the engine and the tailpipes and everything would be hot. So I said, don't touch the motorcycle. And so I went into the house, and later on, he came up and he says, don't tell Rob that I touched his motorcycle.
That was Deward, right?
Yep,
Yeah, it was
Deward.
Deward.
Good old Deward.
He's still the same.
Yeah, he's always
Every
running
time
around touching
he rides his motorcycle there, he's like, don't tell Rob, but I touched his motorcycle.
He still tells me that. His son, I'm like, I'm not going to tell him, Deward.
I swear.
That's your motorcycle.
I
Oh,
have
no,
a story
cat's out of the bag
about
now,
when
Deward.
Deward come down and helped Rob with the route, and they were getting in there, and it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and Rob's in the truck, and he feels something on his leg, like somebody's touching it.
It was pitch black. We got, and your mom does not like to have a dome light on the truck or a car. So if she gets in the night, she doesn't like anybody to see her. For some reason, she's got a phobia of having the dome light on somewhere. So we opened up the door, and we got in there and pitch black, and shut the doors and go to start the car, and all of a sudden I feel Deward's hand on my knee, and then it comes running up my thigh, and I thought, what?
For those of you at home, this is when Deward was an adult. Like a
He's a
30-year-old
baby.
man.
Yeah,
He's
he's
your
an
motorcycle.
adult.
But what had happened? Yeah, what had happened is that I'd left the window open the night before, and a cat had jumped up on my leg and was running up towards me. But I really didn't know what to think there for a minute. Right.
Deward, we were that close, brother-in-law,
Yeah, Deward's just very
didn't seem
affectionate.
like the type of person that
Put
go
his
after
hands
their
on your
brother-in-law. But, so I was quite surprised at his
It's
defense.
hilarious.
But I really didn't know what to think there for a minute.
It's funny.
When he started purring, I knew Deward. I'd never heard Deward purr.
No. The only time he does that is if he's touching a motorcycle. And he gets a little,
Yeah, he's like,
oh, boy.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's fun. I think we'll probably have another episode, too, where we just go through some stories, because there's a lot of stories I've heard that are pretty funny in my lifetime.
about your dad, yeah, he's a funny guy.
About my dad, about my mom.
Most of them about your mom.
Yeah, most of them about my mom. There's not that many.
we got to be honest.
So for some context for everybody, I have 9 siblings, which if you can do math means my parents had 10 kids. Which means that there's
It's a good number. It's a good number. 10's a solid
I
number.
like 10.
Yeah.
And 5 boys and 5 girls.
Just
Yeah,
gonna say
equal
split.
you fell one short of grandma, so you didn't win the family
Yes.
competition for the most kids.
No.
Ah, goodness.
Yeah, grandma
know,
had
right?
11. She's a go-getter.
There's still time?
Yeah, you guys could go adopt some, or I don't know, maybe you're even more fertile than you expected. I don't know.
You're a dork. We don't want to go there.
You had Anna Laura. She was the surprise baby. What were you? Were you 40?
42.
42.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mom was 42 when she had Oren too.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really? So you guys both had one surprise baby right at the
and
end.
I think Michelle was 42 when she had Chad too.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So there's just one surprise
I know
baby in
what
the
you're saying.
family.
Yeah.
We should have seen that coming.
Yeah.
No, right?
There's a lot of warning signs, Dad.
Family history. Do it.
We didn't
42.
think
Maybe
we
you
could
ought to
have.
keep it in mind too. We weren't supposed to be able
We
to
didn't
have
think
any more,
were able to have any more kids.
according to what a doctor said.
Well, no, not necessarily, but we didn't think we could.
Anyway,
You
know?
can't
Then
trust
you had Anna
doctors.
Laura, and she turned out to be about the most savage one, as we learned,
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago for you guys.
Yeah. Goodness.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So 10 kids, 5 boys, 5 girls,
Yep.
Yeah.
perfectly managed.
I would like to ask, what's it like raising a whole bunch of comedians?
and they're all so funny. I'll tell you.
Well, we didn't recognize their talent when they were younger. We just,
Yeah. Well, we were still recognizing our own talent at that time.
It only came out later in life, later in their life.
I think for us, it developed over time through, how a lot of comedians train to deal with hecklers?
Right,
Well, we all had 9 hecklers. And so we got the hard part of comedy out of the way.
So you got to elbow past all the hecklers
exactly.
to get your
exactly.
routine
Made,
down. Okay.
made all of us strong,
And how did you guys provide that kind of environment to really
We didn't have a
nurture
choice.
We have a corral outside. It looks roughly like a
organic.
boxing ring.
Oh, okay.
They'd put us in there, all 10 of us, and last one alive got to eat. The last one up got to
They'd
eat.
bring people over, take bets.
That's also how they paid
It's
for the
pretty
meal.
lucrative for a while.
We used to make them walk down to the stop sign too, so they had a lot of time to think about their
Yes,
jokes.
we would. Stop signs roughly like...
If
I
they fought-
appreciate how the punishment in Y'all's household is to walk around the corral.
Yeah,
Go
yeah.
walk the corral.
Yeah.
They're like,
Well, if they fight, it gives them time to think, time to cool
How
off.
much more they hate each other, They come back to
plot
just
revenge.
simmering,
Yeah, well, it did kind of work. Mom would be like, go walk to the bus stop. The bus stop's about a quarter mile away, and you'd walk down there, and on the way down there, you'd be so mad. And just, Daniel, it was Daniel's fault anyway. He's so stupid. I was just sitting there watching TV, and he had to come up and take my toy. It makes me so mad, and then you just slowly get less and less mad.
And then you see a dandelion on the side of the
you're
road. You're like, oh, dandelion.
Yeah.
and then you getting close to home. And you're like, I'm kind of tired. I don't know. Like,
which one of you
kinda wanna
found
go
the
back.
skunk?
I don't remember that.
It seems like somebody found a
We
skunk.
found a
didn't
skunk.
they? So it must have been you.
Well,
Yeah.
it
I
was
don't
when we
remember
were at the
that.
shooting range, not by the house.
Yeah, I don't remember
we
a skunk.
not only found him, but we dispensed of him.
Yes, we did. I don't know if we can admit that. I don't know. I think skunks are considered anyway.
Considered
Have to edit
smelly.
that one out.
Yeah.
Smelly.
Yeah.
But sorry, I kind of derailed the question with jokes. What was it like raising all of us comedians for you guys?
I thought
Yeah.
Williams was going to say, what was it like raising 10 children? And
That's what I was
And-
expecting too.
It's basically the same thing
I was
in your
going to give him
household.
the answer my mom said, because
Oh.
when I got,
Yeah.
I'm like, Mom, how did you raise 11 kids? She's like, one at a time. but my brothers, they didn't do that. They tried to raise them 2 at a time. Because they both have
They had
sets
twins,
of twins. Yeah.
Oh, do they have twins? Both?
Both
Yeah.
of them.
Goodness.
Deward, the aforementioned
Oh, yeah.
person,
Yeah,
Oren,
and his little brother.
we
Oren.
mentioned
Yeah,
both of them in the podcast so
Yeah.
far. They're go-getters. They said, we don't want to wait that long. You got 11 to beat.
Yeah.
The other part was we had plenty of other parents in the house. It wasn't just us raising them.
Yeah.
The oldest kind of become.
Yeah.
I don't know
what
AJ,
you're talking
about.
all of them.
AJ makes the best parent now, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, AJ's taking right over the
Daniel, I
parenting
swear.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had plenty of parents and some kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, you raised them all one at a time, except me. I raised myself, obviously.
and you didn't do a very good job. Hindsight's 2020, but you could have done yourself more favors in this direction. I'm kidding. Robin and Raquel tried it. You just kind of pushed them away. That's not their fault. They tried. The rest turned out pretty good.
They tried to limit the amount of pizza I could have. I couldn't allow that. I had stuff to do.
And hot dogs. We
And
tried
hot
when you were young.
I love me a good hot dog.
Who was it that liked the ketchup sandwich?
Nate. That was Nate that did the ketchup sandwiches forever.
It was in a book somewhere, and that's where you got the idea.
It was a family night.
That was in a book?
Yeah.
It was a family night. It was in for the friend about something about
Oh, just
ketchup
ketchup
sandwiches, and then
Nate just ran with it.
yep, he
He's
loved
like,
them.
this is actually good stuff.
That's all I want.
Reminds me of pizza.
I've always been something of a culinary artist.
And an entrepreneur. I mean, we
Well-
experiment with different, brands of ketchup.
Yeah. Well,
Nate
there's
was
certain types
partial
of bread too. Some people just say
Yeah.
take some ketchup and put it on a bread.
Texture's a little
They
different
don't,
sometimes.
they don't recognize the true art of the craft.
The nuance of the
The-
flavor and
The
all that.
viscosity of the ketchup, really does a lot.
Exactly. Well, a Heinz is not the same as a Great Value.
No.
And besides that, Great Value didn't exist back then.
There's a reason why one's a name brand.
Exactly. So it really makes a difference, and you got to be a master of your craft.
Which you are the ketchup sandwich.
Thank you, Williams. I wasn't
I'll
going to
give
say
you
it.
that title. Yeah.
You'll give him that.
What sets Nate Starks apart from your other children? Like, or the particular difficulties, or maybe the particular joys, even if you
Well,
can find one
where
or
do
two.
I
The
start?
the other kids kind of thought Nate was favored because he was homeschooled. So he had the reputation of being the favorite child. But Nate, I will hate it when I say this because he's heard it his whole life. Nate was by far the hardest baby ever. He was so demanding. He just followed me around and cried because he didn't want me to hold him, but he didn't want to be down. And he was just really, really hard. He was very demanding. And when
Kinda
Nate wanted
fussy.
something, he made sure you knew it.
What if I don't know what I want? Then I'm going to cry.
I know, you didn't. And you just made sure I knew it.
You're welcome. Adversity makes you stronger.
Look how strong
And
you
I
are
had
now.
a lot of that when Nate was until he turned about 18 months, and I got pregnant with Shay, and then I went on girls' camp, and he stayed with my sister for 3 days, and I come home, and his evil twin left, and it was this sweet little Nate. He would play by himself and over with the cars and stuff, and he would let me play with him, and he just changed. He was a different kid when I come back.
You said he was evil?
No, it just reminded me. Shay loves it when because we used
Refer
to tease
to her
her. She had an
evil
evil
twin,
twin.
Shaylina.
Yeah, because she had two sides where she was just so sweet, but then she had the stubborn side, and so it's like,
yeah.
Shaylina's here, I see, and she would get so mad. So I just was going back to that reference. Is that it was two sides of Nate,
So what happened is my evil twin never came back.
Yeah, it never
Unlike
came back.
Shay's, who still makes appearances today.
I wouldn't dare say that because
Oh, she doesn't listen anyway.
Your
You guys
take?
are learning all sorts of things about
Yeah.
Nate today,
I was a fussy baby. I knew that already.
But he was a good kid. All of our kids are really good kids, and Nate made good choices, and he didn't fit in as well at school because he wanted to tell everybody to make good choices too.
They should have listened to me.
He was
not
a
a
little
cool kid.
angel. Yeah.
And his cousin would be over a lot, and his older brother, and Nate was always telling them they needed to behave, and so
They
they
didn't
didn't
like that very much.
Yeah, they didn't like
Surprisingly.
No, yeah. I never understood why they didn't like me telling them
Hey,
what to do very much.
Joseph in the Bible had the exact same problem.
Which makes me wonder, where's my multicolored coat? Huh?
It's
Pretty sure that's on you,
have
Dad.
to buy your own at this point.
So,
You
but
could
he was a good
take
kid.
William's plaid jacket there.
Yeah, it's pretty close
That's about
to.
what you're gonna get.
Well, it's supposed to come from my dad, and Williams has a mustache, Dad, but he's not my
Well,
dad.
so do I. Nobody said anything about it.
Well,
You have a goatee.
Mom, as the only girl here,
What?
how would you rate Williams' mustache?
I like William's mustache.
Out
I'd
of
rate it at a 10.
You're rating
10.
10? Okay,
Yes.
how would you rate Dad's
And I'd rate
goatee?
Williams a 10 too.
Okay, okay.
She rates it itchy.
How would you rate Dad's goatee?
I like Dad's goatee a lot.
You out of 10.
You're calling me to be nice to your dad. I can't be nice to dad. He'll get a
There
big
is
head.
a story
He already
about
has
my
a huge
goatee.
head.
She rates it itchy. Why didn't she rate Williams' mustache as itchy?
Well, 'cause
Probably
she doesn't have to
makes
worry
him
about
itchy
that.
too. Is your goatee itchy for mom or for you or for both?
You'd have to ask your mom on that one. Mine can be itchy if I let it grow too long, yes.
Fair enough.
So there's a story behind the goatee.
Well, Anna Laura, the youngest, that had so much to say on the last podcast.
Well, it's not going to be the last.
One day, probably, I think she was about 4 or 5, and I just went to the barber. I believe it was a Saturday morning, and Mom, Raquel, had taken the kids and gone somewhere for the morning. And I went to the barber, and I got a fair amount of hair cut off. And then I thought, sometimes I get sick of this goatee mustache. And so I thought I'm going to give them something to think about when they get home. So I cut off my goatee and my mustache. And so I went in my room and laid down face down on the bed, so they, to get the surprise element in there. And so Mom comes home, Raquel comes home, sorry, and Anna Laura comes in the bedroom with her, and she comes up to me. She was always kind of a daddy's girl, and so she taps my shoulder and said, Daddy, guess what we did? So I lifted my head and turned to her, and she kind of drew back quickly, and she says, That's not my dad. And so I said, No, I'm your dad. You can hear me. I sound like your dad. You're not my daddy. And so this went on for a minute. I could tell she wasn't convinced. So she goes, Raquel had gone out and was doing some dishes or something. And she says, Mom, that's not my daddy in there. And Raquel says, No, that's your daddy. He just cut off his beard and got a haircut. And she says, well, she didn't quite understand. And Mom says, well, that's what he looked like when we met and got married. And she kind of furrowed her little brow and says, well, if that's what he looked like, why'd you marry him?
So she's always been savage.
Yeah, you could say that.
Well, you know how the rest of us had to fight for, everything. Anna Laura was born with that.
She was just given it.
When I was first born, I only had to fight 3 people.
Are you talking about your savagery or
her savagery?
No.
Yeah, when I was born, I only had to fight the 3, and then as time went on, more contenders showed up, more and more and more. Anna Laura always started with 9. She's always been vicious.
Came out of the gates looking for blood.
Starting with 9, she was always very loved. She came into where it was always neat to see the kids, how much they doted on her and loved her.
She was the baby.
Yeah. It's fun to see, just the love between the siblings and stuff.
Yeah, we get along really well, despite the fact that we had to fight for, there'd be 4 meals served a day, and we had to fight to see who would get them. When there was
every day we'd put out 4 plates on the table, and Mom and I'd take our 2, and okay, whoever gets it, yeah.
Survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, we didn't have 10 children. You know what I mean? We didn't always have the 10.
Well, for a good portion of my life, there was 6 of us.
Yeah.
So I had 5 siblings till I was 15.
Yeah.
16,
14.
15,
I think you were 14.
14.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we had 4 at home, and then we decided to do some foster care, and we had the other 3 come in, and they were siblings. And so we went from 4 to 7 overnight. And so that's when you had to fight for your plate.
You mean 4 at home, because Kelsey and
4
Taylor
at home,
moved
and Kelsey
out.
and Taylor had moved out, yeah. And so we had the 4 at home, and then we went from 4 to 7, and I was pregnant at the time too. So
So we
went from
4 to 7 to 8 at home.
Yeah,
That is
and it was
crazy.
really crazy, really loud, and it was kind of
a
a
pretty
hard
wild
time. It was
yeah.
a crazy time. So he
Yeah.
didn't always have to fight for food. Before the other kids came, he'd
Before they
always
came,
trick his
well-
siblings out of the food. Because if they had pizza, he's like, feed the dog,
Well,
feed the dog.
if my
That's how he
siblings,
That's smart.
if my
Actually.
siblings were a
That's
little
pretty
So
good.
they're
smarter,
giving him the pizza over there. They're giving him their pizza, their share.
if my siblings were a little smarter, they'd have caught on. How do you think I grew up to be big and strong? Some of them are still little and weak.
Shane and Benj went without a lot of times because they're feeding the dog.
No wonder they're such pansies. That was my favorite game as a kid.
I noticed. I know.
How much pizza did he get as a child?
We
What brought him to pizza as his favorite food? Do you remember his first pizza?
Well, he worked at a pizza factory
Place.
during high school.
But when the
Not
kids were
factory,
really
but
young,
pizza joint.
we had crazy. You know how it is. You had sports, and it was
Uh-huh.
really crazy. And I always had.
Mhm.
I don't anymore, but I always had all the kids in all the sports that they could be in. So you had nights where you had 6 or soccer games. You're
Yeah.
trying to get everybody to. So we did pizza a lot in those days.
But it doesn't
Thank
seem like any of
goodness.
your other
Little
children are
Caesars
as
was
into pizza
$5
as
Little
my boy
Caesars.
Starks here.
I remember Benj at 4 praying, please let the pizza guy give us pizza tonight.
Well, he's
Okay,
also
so
and a spider
also
whispered
told-
to Benj.
Benj came
Yeah,
up
we
to mom.
needed to
He
order
was
pizza
5
that
then. He's
night,
like,
yeah.
"Hey, mom, the spider told me we need pizza tonight."
So we had pizza that night.
Okay. Well,
Benj used
you
to-
have
Benny
to.
is
Spider
Benny.
whispers it too.
Benj also used to love him some pizza, but unfortunately, he left the ways of the
So-
truth.
The-
So you're
the
a traditional
night-
man. You stick with your family values.
I
The
stick
rest
with
of
it.
them are just
Yeah,
kind of.
I'm a big believer in doing
The
what's
day
right.
that I had-
Pizza's what's right.
The day I had Benj, Nate's on video, and this is stuck to Ben's craw to this day.
Benj still brings it up every time.
He's like, Benj is there, and we have him, and they're all there seeing it.
Yeah,
All-
baby,
all
you
Nate's-
don't know.
Yeah, and Nate said, when do I get to go home and have pizza? When do I get to go home and have pizza? Ben just brings that up all the time.
I
On
was
video
hungry.
of Nate.
I had another. I already had Shay.
Were you 4?
There was a baby around
Were you
on it. Yeah,
four?
I was.
The
four.
baby
Yeah.
was cool, but
Well,
pizza's
we had
better.
Shay. I remembered when we had Shay. It'd been a couple days since I'd had pizza. Babies are new, but not that new.
Yeah, well, Benj hasn't forgiven him to this day for that
Well,
one.
he'll get over it, or he won't. I was telling Kelsey. So right now we're in Payson, where, which is pretty close to where I was when I was waiting. Like how old I would have been at that time.
Benj was
And
born in Payson Hospital.
We drove past this Little Caesars up here, and I told Kelsey that one time I was riding with Mom and Dad, and we just stopped in that Little Caesars. They didn't say we're going to stop and get pizza. They didn't tell me we're getting pizza. We just stopped there
Well,
and
what
got
do you-
pizza.
What else did you
And-
stop at Little Caesars for?
Well, but here's the thing.
He didn't know that at the time. He was young.
I didn't know that's where we were going. I just knew we were driving somewhere, and we stopped and got pizza. And from that time forward, my mind was like, sometimes they get pizza, sometimes they don't. They don't always tell you. So every time we drove by that Little Caesars, I would be like, is this a pizza time? And I would just like hold my breath whenever we were near it and be like, are we getting pizza? And I remember that because we drove past it, and I was like, oh, wow. That's
As a
wild
result,
memory.
he
I
turned
remember
blue and
seeing
passed
that
out
and
quite
just getting hopeful.
The American First was right there by it. Sometimes we got money, sometimes we didn't. You don't
Yeah.
remember
Yeah, I
that?
don't know. I
You were
can't
holding
eat
your
it.
breath?
Yeah, money.
Yeah, you can't eat money. Money comes and goes, but pizza is forever.
It becomes part of you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm probably 80% pizza.
Well, it's a good thing I didn't know that because I would have just went there and parked. Just
I would have died. I don't know. I genuinely have so many memories of coming up over the hill, seeing the building, and being like, maybe it's a pizza time. And these are like some of my early childhood memories.
I will say I do miss pizza. You know, I'm gluten free. I can't
yeah.
have pizza anymore.
Well, Williams, I'll buy you some
Yeah.
after this if you'd like. You know,
Gee, thanks,
gotta
Starks.
have gluten in it though. I'm worried about your health.
I know you have my silly gluten-free diet that I do.
Awful silly of you.
But the other day I had to orchestrate a pizza party for my custodial crew, and the pizza they got, I was like, I went to the Little Caesars to pick it up for them and stuff. I was like, I would give one of their right arms for a pizza. I wouldn't give my own, but I would give someone else's.
Some of you may
You're one of those
die.
kind of bosses, huh?
But it's a
Yeah, I'm one of those.
sacrifice
I'm willing to
make.
I'm one of those that never makes mistakes, but my employees make them all the time. Take that as you will, you know.
Yep. It's true.
We've all had one of those bosses.
A good one?
Sure.
If you are looking for openings, I can be that boss for you.
Oh boy.
But yeah, pizza.
Yeah.
Very good. Sorry,
Yeah.
Williams.
That's actually a chapter in the book of Nate's life. Is the pizza chapter. It's a long one.
I'm pretty sure that's the book.
It kind of permeates throughout the book.
That's the cover and the ending page.
What about the sandwiches?
There's some other
There
stuff.
There was
there
the
was a
sandwiches.
sandwich.
Nate was the sandwich connoisseur.
I
What
love
other
would make
sandwiches did you
sandwich-
make besides the
He
ketchup
would make
sandwich?
Well, you see,
sandwiches.
there's
He'd always put ranch.
a lot of complexity to sandwiches, Williams. It began with the ketchup sandwich, which is a fine beginning. Let me tell you, there's a lot of things that can be done with a ketchup.
Did you ever expand to the ketchup and mustard sandwiches?
No,
Nate's not a mustard
I
eater.
did. Well, I did develop. It was inspired by my mother, you see. So I didn't completely
okay.
develop it, but I did master it. You see, what you do is you take some bread, and the best way to do it is to toast it, preferably on a grill, like toast it on a grill,
Like a little
or whatever
griddle
it's
or on the
called. Yeah, or
stove.
like a grill or on the stove.
Okay.
And then what you do is you spread some mayo on there, and then this is when mustard is applicable and acceptable. You put some mustard in there, and you mix it in with the mayo, and then you take some sandwich meat, and this is also done best on the grill. You put it on the grill and put cheese on it until it melts. Slap that bad boy between the bread that you've put mustard and mayo on, and then get some tortilla chips and put them on the sandwich. If done correctly, that is what has been long referred to as the perfect sandwich.
Okay.
Also, actually,
I would like
forgot.
to
I left out the spinach or lettuce.
Spinach, yeah.
Spinach, yeah.
I kind of forgot to bring up. Nate was probably the pickiest child you've ever seen to eat.
Oh,
He would
he
not.
would not
He
eat.
would.
Kind of sandwiches.
Well, see, when he was really young, he wouldn't eat anything. That looks yucky. That's gross. No,
He was
no,
so
not that.
thin.
No, and he wouldn't eat at all.
What do you mean was?
So,
You weren't thin like you were then. You were a little stick.
so he wouldn't eat anything, and so I'd make really fancy desserts. And he could have some of the fancy desserts if he would try stuff. So it really worked well. The only thing that he absolutely would never eat was cauliflower and broccoli.
Well, that's understandable. Have you seen those vegetables?
I want you to know.
He did try.
I have a story for this.
Yeah,
One
he did
time,
try.
One time, we had mashed potatoes and gravy, and I love mashed potatoes and gravy. You know, potatoes, they
I,
grow in the ground.
I do, yeah.
They're healthy for you. They grow in the ground. If it grows in the ground, it's healthy.
Fruit
for
of
you.
the earth,
Potato.
you know?
Yep. So we had mashed potatoes and gravy, and I was eating my mashed potatoes and gravy, and two things happened. One, I was like, why is this mashed potatoes and gravy crunchy? And I looked around at everyone else's plates, and I saw everyone else had cauliflower, but me. My plate just had the mashed potatoes and gravy and the meat.
Coincidence.
So I then looked at my mashed potatoes and gravy, and I saw that there was these crunchy white pieces of broccoli in there, and they were disgusting.
Nate,
And I have never trusted
Go eat.
anyone again.
this coming from a produce manager, broccoli is not white.
Yeah.
That was my childhood.
I could give you a discourse on broccoli.
You were older by then. You were like 12 because that's when I was trying to do low carb.
I didn't know cauliflower existed until that moment.
Really?
Oh.
Because I remember the day that
God,
you
was it?
said you couldn't eat it because Dad had got this really fancy coconut cake. It was really fancy. And it was in the center of the table because I knew he wasn't going to try the broccoli and the cauliflower. So we had this fancy cake and all you have to do is have one bite. So he choked down one bite, but it come back up on the cake.
Ew, gross.
Well, I tell you what,
A little topping to the cake.
if I'm,
you know?
not, I'm not getting any cake, nobody else is either.
nobody.
So take that.
he tried really hard because he sat there forever and because he wanted that cake so bad, and he did get it in his mouth.
Well, maybe you shouldn't make me have nasty food.
Broccoli cauliflower is good, Nate. You just have to open your mind.
I opened my mind, and then said that's disgusting.
One time that I can remember, and
Mom, your flashlight's on.
Raquel still doesn't think too much of this, but I worked at Smith's Food King at one point, and they were throwing away all these big coconut cream pies.
That was when Nate was like a year old. You
And
weren't
so
doing that one.
I said, "Hey, can I take those?" And they said, "What do you want them all for?" I said, "Oh, I have an idea." So I loaded them all up in the back of my truck. There must have been about 50 of them. I don't know why they had that many. But so I get home and open up the truck, and the kids come run up. "What have you got, Dad? What have you got?" I can still remember this old Charlie Chaplin movie where they had this big pie fight. So Kelsey and Taylor came up and I pulled out a pipe. We had this huge pie fight out in the driveway.
That's awesome.
Mom was not humored. She would have to wash the clothes, but
Why not?
Well,
I didn't get my pie to throw at anybody.
you should have pied her face. You would have loved it.
I dare you to try, Nate.
We would have stopped at 4 kids.
I mean, that's fine. 4's enough. Well, the youngest one would have been the best one.
In my experience.
Yeah,
No more
I
competition,
admit that was a little bit of a weird thing to do, but you know,
You gotta have fun.
you only live once.
You got free pies, Dad.
Yeah,
I would do the
don't
same
think
thing
any
with
of them
pies.
got eaten. They all got worn.
We used to have tortilla fights when Dad did the route.
Yeah.
Until we hit somebody with one of those 80 counts. And then that kind of stopped the tortilla fights.
A little too
The
hefty.
80 counts are big, hefty.
Like corn tortillas.
Yeah, they're corn tortillas, and they have 80 tortillas in them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're pretty, they're not super heavy, but having one chugged it doesn't feel great. Especially sometimes they'll freeze in the wintertime.
Yeah. Well, you can pull them out and
Fling them.
fling them like frisbees to the goats, and used to make the goats
love
happy.
Yeah.
Fact, goats love corn tortillas.
Sure. And flour tortillas.
Yeah.
Also, Anna Laura's hair.
Do they? In
Nope.
fact.
Yep.
So she said she was having a hair appointment, but she's actually just going
It was
the goat's
cheaper to
gonna
have
eat
the
the-
goat do it.
the hair off.
Well, goats are pretty cheap. It hurts Anna Laura a little bit more, but, you know, it's a lot cheaper.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like,
That's a
quit
little
screaming,
thing
Anna
when
Laura,
you
it's
save
just a goat.
money.
Yeah. Builds character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, having 10 kids, do you feel like it's as wild as it sounds, more wild than it sounds, or less wild than it sounds, having 10 kids?
Well, your
Keep track of
threshold kind of changes, and I never dreamed that I'd have 10 kids. But at the same time, you get used to it, and I don't know if and when I'll become an empty nester, but it's hard to fathom not having kids around anymore, even though most people my age are empty nesters.
I love having my kids. They still are my life, but I felt like each one of them was my friend, my best friend. You know, you have them, and each one of them you have a relationship with, and I've always just loved that we have the 10, you know, since we've got them, and it's just been my life. I would have more, and I read this horrible story about a little girl that I don't know if you guys saw it just lately, about the guy killed his daughter, you know, and they said he hated her because he reminded him so much of his mother, but he talked about him reaching back and just slapping her in the face. And if I could, I would make a magic wand and take all those kids and bring them into my home. I don't want them out there being treated like that. And that's, I think, one thing that having 10 kids has taught me. Everybody is individual in who they are, but they have something to offer to everybody. You know, they all have different personalities. They have different things about them, and we all have our own little things that we have to overcome. But my gosh, my kids have taught me just there's a love for everybody, a pure love that you can have for everybody. And I wish we had more kindness and love in the world, you know, because we're so hard on each other. You know, I go back to even that story in Preston where that guy killed himself and the kids, and they're like, how could he do that? Number one, I wouldn't want to leave my kids behind if I was struggling, you know, but what would have happened if someone would have just been a little kinder to him and helped him with his struggles, you know? And so having 10 kids is taught me, yeah, we're not perfect, but we can find love for their little weaknesses too, you know? And anyway,
Nate had a lot of love that
I wouldn't. Well, Nate.
Well, not to mention, you said everyone has their own personalities. One of them was clearly cooler than the others. You wanted to point out
I have
which one
to
it
say,
was. But
Nate was very tolerant of me because I did enjoy shooting Nate with a Nerf gun. He was very tolerant about
one
that.
of the best and worst things I ever did was bring a Nerf gun home. When I was working at King's, there was a Nerf gun that looked really cool. It had a glow in the dark darts, and
Which is pretty awesome.
Brought it home.
You know?
Yeah, it was. Well, it had a little motor in it, so it would shoot really fast. So you turn on the motor, go, and then it would just. You could shoot like it had like an 18-round like clip.
What was it? Tommy 20? Was that the one you got?
I don't remember what it was called, but it was really fun. And me and the kids like got a bunch of other Nerf guns and started playing. Soon enough, we invited Mom to play one time, and we didn't know that was a
Big
turning point.
mistake.
Yeah, we didn't know that was a turning point. And then they right after that they came out with the Nerf Rivals, which we didn't discover actually until I left on my mission.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
we started doing Nerf Wars.
They've since been discovered.
And not only that, we for Christmas one year we got Mom a Nerf gun.
You got me my first one for Mother's Day.
Yeah, it was one of the more powerful, accurate ones of the time. And I remember distinctly a lot of times being up in my room, reading a book, being a good, productive child as I always was.
Right, yeah.
Reading, like, very important books.
As you would.
Or doing my chores. Like, one of those two things. And I'd hear the inevitable, Nate. And I would be like, well, okay, I'm going to head on in. My mom needs
be the
me.
good child.
It's important. And I would come in, and she'd be sitting there on the bed, pointing a gun at the door, a Nerf gun at the door. And she'd shoot me, like, a bunch of times. And I would run away in fear.
I would say, I've also discovered that around their house, in a couple of spots, she's got some Nerf guns hidden where she can just grab and go.
Yeah. You got to be ready in my household, my parents' house. You're never safe. One time we were at a family party, and my mom whips a Nerf gun out of her purse, this little compact one, and she shoots me. And I was like, we're not even home, Mom. We're at Grandma's house.
That's not even cool, Mom. Talk to your grandma.
Yeah. So now you know. I was ambushed a lot as a child.
I don't have my little Nerf gun in my purse anymore, though.
Well,
she says that to throw us off guard, and she pulls it out.
Mom, put it down. We moved a little bit away from the Nerf guns that are compact. The Rivals are a lot bigger, so they're harder to hide.
Yeah.
They shoot a lot better. So anyone who
I did buy that Christmas the matching his and hers for Dad and I. For
you guys had that one.
But they were just too.
They're one
you
shot.
Remember? They were the big ones, and they were for a bit.
You don't remember that, Dad?
We were trying to keep this rated G.
Love is war.
What's funny? One of my favorite memories is just my mom and dad. We had guns all around the house always, and so they were very strict about their guns. You couldn't point even a toy gun, like any kind of gun, at another person. And so I've always felt like my mom didn't like me shooting my kids with my Nerf gun.
Yeah.
I just felt this little bit. She wasn't going to say anything because I was an adult, but. So the one day we had this big family party and we had been outside playing, and I brought my gun in, and Dad picks it up, my dad, and it's a semi-automatic, and it has all these big things. I remember this. And he starts shooting Nate.
Listen, we've upgraded significantly. This is a big gun. It holds like 60 rival bullets. And if you've ever shot the rival bullets, they kind of sting a little bit, actually. They're pretty good.
They get you right, yeah.
Yeah, but that's where I discovered them was in Texarkana, where we
I remember that. I remember that.
But you were saying Grandpa had that
Dad
great
picks it up
big one.
and he shot Nate. And I don't know when I've heard my dad laugh so hard. He was laughing so hard. And it was just funny because I'm like, I know where I get it.
Not Mom, but Dad.
Yeah. Yeah, Dad also got into it, although he wouldn't usually call me specifically into the room to shoot me.
Well, the thing is, Nate was homeschooled, so there was nobody else to shoot. So I had to shoot Nate.
No, I was still the favorite target. Yeah. I was still the favorite target, even when the kids were home.
That's all starting to come together
now. Oh, boy.
Layers like donkey.
It was fun. But I was going to say, you were talking about having 10 kids and how, I think for me, this is our little sort of more deeper part of our segment today, but I think for me, I think there are some people that struggle with putting their others above themselves in a way, and that's something I feel like both my parents are really, really good with. Now you guys are gonna probably not gonna completely agree with me because nobody in our family knows how to take a compliment gracefully. But I remember distinctly several experiences where my parents placed us or other people and really went to help them out. I remember when Mom had Anna Laura and finances were a little tight, and I was driving down to pick up Mom and Anna Laura, and we had a car seat in the car, and Mom ran into this couple. She calls me and she's like, Nate, I need you to stop at Walmart, and I need you to buy a new baby car seat, because this couple here, they don't have one. And so she wound up giving her I didn't have the car seat. She had the car seat. So she gave them the one that she'd had for Anna Laura, and then we bought a new one. And that's just my mom. You know, she's here today, but she's just very giving, amazing woman. Wait. Before you speak, remember what I said about not taking compliments gracefully.
Okay, well, I took it. I don't remember that.
I will say that whenever I go over, they treat me far better than I deserve.
You're darn right, they do.
I'm kind of a reprobate.
They treat you better than their own kids.
Yeah. I'm like, wow.
Sometimes I'm like, do they even love me? And
Nate, you have a complex, though, because you always say the in-laws are treated better than you.
They are. Well, see, here's it is. I'm accused of being the favorite child. I'm not used to this favoritism above them, like my siblings are. You know, they're used to it. They deserve it. You know,
wait till you get married. It ain't gonna mow the lawn. We want to talk about it.
We'll come back to the whole in-laws thing. We need to address that for the public. But
they need to know.
But I think I've seen a lot of other examples with that in my dad too. One thing that I remember from a very young age is, particularly with food, people would be like, hey, I want this or I want that. And I remember a lot of times my dad giving other people his food. Like, a lot of times we'd dish up cake and there would be like not enough for everybody or whatever. And I remember him saying, no, Raquel, you have this. No, Nate, you have this. No, this. And there was a ton of times where he would give up that stuff.
Greater love hath no man.
Yeah.
Then to lay down his cake for us.
But, well, I just mean, like, it honestly, I feel like Mom and Dad, for me, have been a very good example of just always being giving. And you see that with Kelsey, too.
Mm-hmm.
Kelsey, we're at Kelsey's house right now. She made us all breakfast and did all this stuff. And just very giving. And I think that comes from you guys both being very giving.
You people are too sweet.
Kind people, yeah. Well, when you guys let Williams this reprobate in your house multiple times.
Can you believe? Multiple occasions. Even without Stark's there, you know?
Well, and Dad, too. I remember Dad doing work on tons of things all the time for our family, for Mom and Dad, or for Grandma and Grandpa. Just like, it's just Dad. Dad's always out working on stuff, and Mom's there. Just as a family unit, we go do stuff like that all the time.
Well, I was going to say, that's how my mom was. My mom would do anything for anybody, you know, and I remember my sister-in-laws talking about it one time, and they said something about that's what they love about the family is because they kind of circle the wagons, and that's what I've seen my mom, you know, whenever I needed anything, my mom stepped up, and my dad, they just were very, and my dad in the community that he was always helping someone.
Yeah.
And I always loved that because they were very kind and giving. And
go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, that's what I was going to say. With our family, I remember when I first learned about AAA, and someone was telling me about it, I was like, what? You need that?
I mean, what my family
my uncle I haven't talked to in 2 years. Granted, sometimes you go further. I actually got AAA for a trip across the country, but anywhere around
the Starks haven't spread out east as much
I'm still trying to convince them. I want to create checkpoints.
Yeah,
but they haven't quite caught on to that one just yet.
Well, I'll take Virginia.
Yeah, you'll take Virginia. Yeah. Thanks for sacrificing for us, Mom.
Anytime.
No, but like I haven't talked to Antone in a little while, or TJ or anybody, but I'm 100% sure that if I got stranded up by where they're at, I would just call them and be like, "Hey, will you come pick me up?" And
Shay and Adrian went to Boise for a wedding, and I hadn't talked to TJ for a couple weeks or whatever, and I just called them, and that's where they stayed, you know. And it is they're very
What do you think, Dad?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well spoken.
Affirmative.
But I promised we would come back around to the whole in-laws thing.
Oh.
And I didn't forget. I'm just going to say my mom particularly, my dad does too, but a little less so. My mom particularly tends to spoil her in-laws quite a bit.
They wouldn't agree with you, Nate.
They wouldn't agree with me?
Nope.
Well, good thing they're wrong.
You can take a poll and say.
I'm taking a poll right now, and everyone
I
here.
spoil my children and my husband. They're who I spoil.
You do spoil all of us. Just the in-laws a little bit more. You like to support the in-laws. I remember Megan. This is the best
Sweet
example
Megan.
of it. Sweet
My sweet
Megan.
Megan.
Yes, Sweet Megan.
As we refer to her.
The best example of it was when we were playing. What was it? Was it Imagine If?
I think
It was like a quick game where you had to list off something. But one of the
this
the
is
things
all
was
stuff.
hobbies. It was hobbies, and you had to. The way this game goes is they give you a category, and then you have to list it off with whatever the letter starts with. And Megan put gluing, which I respected because like you put whatever could even be close because the letter was G. Yeah. And I remember being like, gluing is not a hobby. Gluing could be a part of a hobby, but it's not a hobby. And my mom argued with me, tooth and nail. Megan was like, "You're right. It's not a hobby. That's my bad." And Mom was like,
to do some gluing.
Dad does gluing here and there. I dabble.
Not a connoisseur, not professional.
Yeah. Now, like, starts making sandwiches over here. But
I know what I'm
near
about.
that level.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just jealous because we did spoons one day and it was wild. It was way wild. And Taylor and Nate and Megan had the spoon, right? And she wasn't letting go, and so you saw sweet little Megan just being lifted like 1 foot off the floor.
She should have let
And
go
she's
of
on
the
the spoon, so Nate's jealous.
She should have let go of the
this
spoon.
up because
The
he never
poor
got
thing.
the spoon.
Goodness, Starks.
Well, she's just lucky I didn't throw her.
Oh wow!
Wow.
That's why you brought that up.
There are
You're
women
jealous she got the
listening to
spoon.
this show, Nate.
Well, I
Questions
wouldn't have technically been thrown her. I would have just been trying to get the spoon away, and she's just light enough to.
She never let go of that spoon. It was so
She
funny.
wouldn't. When Mom says I lifted her off the ground, she was.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I was holding her. I was holding the spoon.
That says something about Rip's strength, you know?
Besides, he had a precedent
Yeah.
to set to all of his future sister-in-laws how things are going to be. You know?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, we play spoons. I take it serious. I actually went with Maddie to her brother's house, and we played spoons, and they had these little plastic spoons.
Oh really?
And I was like,
boy.
This
those
is
are
not going to
to.
You can't play with plastic spoons.
Yeah, I know. That's what I said. They had all the little kids, and this boy was it easy.
Those poor kids.
Yeah.
I did throw those.
Well, gotta win. But I'm very competitive. Not as competitive as my mom. She's the most competitive in the family.
No, she's not.
Really?
Case in point.
Nope, Nate's the most
Close the
competitive.
book. Mom, we just got group consensus just to say.
Yeah, but you're all biased, and
Yeah.
Williams didn't agree with you, did you, Williams?
He literally did. This is recorded. We can go back.
He wants that status. He's not going to say anything.
I can't lie and say that I didn't agree with what they said. You know?
I may or may not have.
I can neither confirm nor deny
Yeah.
that.
It's better if we just move on.
Oh boy. Well, we promised we'd keep this episode a little bit shorter. Is there anything you guys would like to say on the air? Any stories you'd like to tell? Any rebuttals you have to Anna Laura and Allie's episode 2 weeks ago that you need to get to before we get here?
I'm full of rebuttals on it.
We don't have time, is what you're
Well,
saying.
fake news.
Fake news, everybody.
Well, so if there's no comments from you guys, we just have 2 more important questions. First one is how much wood
Oh,
could a
goodness.
woodchuck chuck?
For Pete's sake.
If a woodchuck could chuck wood.
You raised him.
You know all
Don't
about
blame it on
wood.
me.
Chucking wood. There's a tree.
I think we've told that story on
Yeah,
the podcast.
yeah.
That's their popular joke. Their poor dad. He's sitting right here.
He raised us. He earned every
He
bit
does
of
nothing to deserve it. He's just like, keep an eye out for trees,
it.
and then you comment
Well,
on
there
every
was
single
lots
tree you
of
drive.
You did hear the story about him holding me up with the squirt gun, right?
Okay, maybe all's fair. I
That
don't.
was one time.
Karma, baby,
It was,
karma.
it was a memorable
All I'm
time.
saying is, if you ask me to look for trees, I'm going to look for trees. If I see them, I'll tell you. What do you want from me?
Some people just have a hard time grasping some concepts,
Yeah.
you know.
Doesn't help that they're comedians. You know what I'm
Yeah. Well, my dad raised a bunch of comedians. You know?
saying? So I
It's a
care.
well documented fact. Yes.
Now recorded,
Now record.
forever to be.
We made that joke on the podcast.
I know.
Before, but it's one of my favorites, so we're going to keep making it. So we're not going to answer the question then. We're just going to avoid that one.
How much wood
Which
could a
one?
woodchuck chuck?
Yep.
He'd chuck as much wood as a woodchuck. Was as much as a woodchuck could chuck if he could chuck wood.
Fair
There you
enough. Mama,
What?
how much
Wood?
could a woodchuck
7.
woodchuck chuck?
Ooh.
Well said. Well
Thank you.
spoken.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Williams, back to you.
All right. I think this is the most important question we ask all our guests
Mm-hmm.
on the podcast, and I want to hear from both of you, each individually. You might be different. I don't know, but are you a dirty dog or a silly goose, and why?
Why me first?
I'm a dirty goose.
Oh, you can't do that. We made a rule. Okay? You can't mix the two. You got to choose one or the other.
Yeah, we have rules. This is
Yeah.
a civilization. Next thing I know, you're just going to start pointing out every tree all willy-nilly.
Well, see,
like,
you guys are wanting me to go either black or white, you know.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yep.
In
It's
the
a
real
hard
world,
choice.
there's colors in between.
That-
Okay, that's my
but
rebuttal.
you can be a silly goose who gets dirty from time
Okay,
to
I'll
time, but
be
you're still a silly goose or a dirty
silly
dog.
How's that?
That's unacceptable.
You got to go one
Well,
way or
that's
the
how
other.
it is.
We,
I rest my state.
Dad, we need some commitment here. You seem an awful.
we're gonna have the Civil War.
awful women.
Eventually.
Yeah, at
And
some point
it
we
comes
I
need.
need to know
down
what
to who
side
can
you're on.
chuck the most wood out of the two of you. How's that?
Okay, well, what are we gonna decide?
Well,
this?
let's do
Next time you
competition.
come up, we'll
All right.
So you're saying you're
we'll
a
just
fair
start
weather
throwing
soldier.
wood.
Yeah.
I go with what suits me the best. Yeah.
Well, so he's a fair weather soldier, a bandwagoner. You're probably a Chiefs fan, aren't you?
Yeah.
No.
Mom, are you going to be more committal than Dad is?
Probably not.
Oh, you guys.
What?
You know I'm a little old lady. You can't lie.
Yeah.
That you've heard that
What
your whole
about
life. The little old lady who lived in a shoe.
Yeah.
Had too many children.
Heard
Didn't know
Evelyn's
what
foot on her
to
face.
do. You can't say you haven't heard that your whole life.
I
Little
have.
old lady.
I have. What about it?
That's what I am.
You're a little old lady?
Who lived in a shoe.
Well, you got to pick either silly goose or dirty dog.
Because if I pick an animal, you know what animal it's going to be.
We do.
Silly goose?
A goat.
Oh.
I would be a goofy goat.
The greatest of
You
all
know,
time.
I think we can give Mom the exception of goofy.
How come she
Only
gets the
because-
exception?
Well,
I mean,
Well,
you
you
know,
come up with a
hold up.
completely different animal, a completely different thing.
Yeah, you said silly dog. You're trying to mix.
Yeah.
Yeah, those things don't mix. This is not how it works.
We have left one other besides
there's-
the.
you can't just claim that it doesn't mix. You got to give me a reason.
Well, listen.
Okay.
Okay, first off, Dad, I want you to notice. I know you raised me and all that stuff, but you're misunderstanding the dynamic of power here.
Yeah, yeah.
This is the podcast. You know, we make the rules, that sort of thing.
You're used to making the rules. I understand.
Not having them followed, though.
Well, I did sometimes, on occasion.
We make exceptions for when we agree that it's cool enough and separate. Because mixing the two alone isn't cool
Well,
enough.
here's the thing. We made an exception for Craig.
Craig.
Because his was Chonky Monkey.
And we're like,
We felt like that was applicable.
yeah.
There's very few exceptions we make. So far, just Craig. Now, Mom, Goofy Goat. If you want to be a Goofy Gorilla Dad,
we might
That's what I
consider.
am. I'm a goofy gorilla.
That's
What was it? Danny said I was a frowning pug or something.
Oh, yeah.
going to be a grumpy pug.
Yeah, I guess
Or a
that's
big
what I
mouth frog. He could be a big mouth frog.
You bring that up, I'll bring up the Rick's College.
Oh, we got into blackmail.
Oh, goodness, yeah.
I was just helping you get an animal.
Because you guys raised me, and technically, you're allowed to tell me what to do. I think we'll make an exception for you guys. You can be a grumpy pug,
And because you
a
have
goofy
been so
goat.
nice to
I'm
me.
a grumpy pug.
Although it seems a little non-committal and mamby-pamby to me, but
Yeah, a little-
you're
yeah.
right to
But
judge.
Yeah.
Grumpy Pug is close to a dirty dog. I just have to say.
I will say.
So
If
you
the Grumpy
basically
Pug
are.
went out and rolled in
And
the
you
You're
mud.
the entire side.
Goofy's
I didn't know I
kinda
married a
silly.
poet.
Yeah. So you kind of fit into this. So
maybe
when we
we'll
have
put-
the Civil War, you're definitely
You
on
guys,
my
Mom,
side.
you'll be an allied country.
I will say
And
that
let me tell
Animal
you,
and Allie are
you will win
both.
the Nerf Wars. Dirty dog.
Yeah,
We
so
should-
they're both
Eccentric.
We should have a
Eccentric.
Nerf War.
Well,
soon.
that too.
We should have a
We'll
Nerf
have a
War
Nerf
soon.
War. We'll bring together the sides and have a Nerf War,
Yeah.
Civil War,
Yeah.
Yeah, let's
and we'll
do
know
it.
who will win.
Yes,
we
do know who
have
would.
two of the foremost Nerf people on one side, and then a grumpy pug and a bunch of dirty animals on the other side.
We fight dirty. That's how we do it.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome.
The dirty fighters usually win.
Williams is just carrying a full-on combat knife.
Yeah, who's winning now?
Look at your gun.
Technically, we're still winning, but we're injured. All right.
All right. So, we always close out our podcast with having the guests recite our motto. It'd be great if you both did it.
I need to know your motto.
Well, did you listen?
I listened. I
Give us-
never get to the end because
give us
I.
your
Listen
best
or
approximation.
don't. We don't care. Right?
Yep, that's it.
Fantastic.
Listen or don't, we don't care.
There you go.
There we go.
Perfect.